You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is John Webster, Director of the Hogan Entrepreneurial Program at Chaminade University. John held the communications and government relations positions in IBM in the United States, Europe, and Asia for over 20 years. John, what struck you about this program when it was being offered at Chaminade that you said, this is definitely something that will benefit Hawaii?
Yeah. Carrie, I had an opportunity most recently before coming to Chaminade to start and then run a fairly unique MBA program for the Singapore government. That was in connection with a university called Nanyang Technological University. And that program was an MBA program. We put it together with MIT to train Asia's future leaders. And it, as you know, the Singapore government is well financed, and so we had a lot of resources to work with. But in working with Asia's future leaders, and these were young people typically in their early 30s, who were going to be ambassadors or executives in Southeast Asia largely, there were a lot of things that I thought could transfer very nicely to the kind of entrepreneurial program we're running. Admittedly, a very different student set and a very different bottom line objective, although we're training future leaders. And they're Hawaii's future leaders, and they're beyond Hawaii's future leaders. And so with that kind of experience behind me, and I was in that environment for about 8 years, when I had this opportunity to start and work with these students through this Hogan Entrepreneurial Program, it was just an opportunity too good to pass up.
What kind of success stories are coming out of this program? Are there any businesses we may have heard of or maybe even not have heard of that are doing well?
Well, I guess we got to define that in a lot of ways, especially in these early days. But yeah, we have some in more traditional terms. We have a graduate of our program. She was an MBA student who started her own business and a mold detection business. She had wonderful skills and preparation for that, was a star in our program, and in her first year of operation, grossed over $1 million. So a nice beginning. We have another young guy, Vietnamese American, grew up in the heart of Indiana, but straight out of Vietnam, didn't speak a word of the language when he arrived in Indiana. He was our outstanding graduate of our first class. He already has 3 different businesses, 2 software firms, and he just recently went back to Vietnam and bought an area. He's going to start a kind of a fishing lodge. So very entrepreneurial. This young man, our outstanding graduate of the first year, as I said, got a full scholarship to Notre Dame to do his PhD in computer science. So 2 very, very traditional, perhaps, success stories. But a lot of them defined in other ways. Let me give you an example. We had a young man named Andy Chore from Yap, 14,000 people in Yap. He was just an outstanding member of the program. There's no doubt in my mind he'll go back to Micronesia and do great things, and he is back in Micronesia now. But Andy, in addition to being a solid student, to being our commencement speaker, we sent him off to an internship in China for 6 weeks. Now, here's a guy that had never been on an airplane until he came from Yap to the University at Chaminade. And he finds himself for 6 weeks in China on a series of internships. His life has changed. Another young man, very interesting. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I relate to this guy. He's from a place called Little Washington, Pennsylvania, outside Pittsburgh. But he, too, had never been on an airplane until he came to school at Chaminade. Joined this program. I remember him so well because I identified with the kind of roots that he had. He was a bit clumsy and a bit unsure of himself and certainly not very secure in business terms. Now he was our outstanding graduate of this past year. He, too, went on internship to China. He was offered a job while he was there. He didn't take it wisely. He wasn't ready for it, but it was just a tremendous opening and new positioning of his life. And he changed from a good student to a leader, and that's really what we're trying to do. So a couple examples, and I certainly could cite more.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.